I'm afraid to say it.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So as a little preamble to today's verse, Madhuji wanted to tell us something about Vishnu.
So in this fortune of Vishnu, there's this component of
What's his name?
I just want to say Vishnu.
I want to say Garbhodakashai.
And his nurturing is to, get out and that's my property to do it.
Yay, Madhuji! You always have it on. Nice. So he got a little bit stage fright, but he was telling me all about Garbhodakashai Vishnu and how the lotus flower came out of his belly and Brahma was there, and he heard Tapa, Tapa perform austerities. So he tells the story behind closed doors. So today's verse, what was it again? 3, 8, 10?
3, 8, 10.
3, 8, 10. No worries. Udaplutam Vishvam Idam Tadasi Udaplutam Vishvam Idam Tadasi
Bhagawatam Vishwamidam Tadasi
Yan
Yan
Nidraya
Nidraya
Amilita
Amita
Drin
Drin
Nyamilayat
Yamayat
Yan Nidraya Amilita Drin Nyamilayat
Yanidraya Amita Drin Yamayat
Ahindra
Ahindra
Talpe
Talpe
Adhishayana
Adhishayana
Ekaha
Ekaha
Ahindra Talpe Dhishayana Ekaha
Ahindra Talpe
Krita
Krita
Kshanaha
Shamaha
Swatma
Swatma
Ratau
Ratau
Nirihaha
Nirihaha
Krita Kshana Swatma Ratau Nirihaha Udaplutam Vishwamidam Tadasid Yan Nidrayami Litadrin Yamilayat Ahindra Talpe Dhishayana Ekaha Kritakshana Swatmaratau Nirihaha Udaplutam Vishwamidam Tadasid Yan Nidrayami Litadrin Yamilayat Ahindra Talpe Dhishayana Ekaha Kritakshana Swatmaratau Nirihaha. Please chant.
Udaplutam Vishwamidam Tadasi Yan Nidrayami Vitadam Yamilayat Ahindra Talpe Dishayana Eka Kritakshana Swatma Ratau Niriha
Udaplutam Vishwaidam Tadasid Yani Trayami Latadrin Yamilayat Indra Talpe Dishayana Eka Kritakshana Svatmarata Miriha Udaplutam Vishwaidam Tadasid Ahindra Talpe Dishayana Eka Kritakshana Svatmarata Miriha Udaplutam Vishwaidam Tadasid Yani Trayami
There's some statement, I should find it. I think it might be in Nectar of Devotion. says that when you're worshiping the deities, you should sit on something.
Yes.
Is that nectar of devotion?
Yes.
I don't follow it myself, but when I see my sister sitting on the cold floor, I thought she should have a seat. Uda,
Buddha,
water.
water,
Aplutam,
Bhagawatam,
submerged in.
submerged in,
Vishvam,
Vishvam,
the three worlds.
the three worlds,
Idam,
Idam,
this.
this,
Tada,
Tada,
at that time.
at that time,
Asid,
Asid,
it so remained.
it so remains,
Yat,
Yat,
in which.
in which,
Nidraya,
Nidraya,
in slumber.
in slumber,
Amilita,
Amilita,
closed.
closed,
Drik,
Drik,
eyes.
eyes,
Nyamiliyat,
Namiliyat,
not completely closed.
not completely closed,
That's a little bit of a tongue twister. Nyamilaya. Ahi Indra,
Ahindra,
the great snake Ananta,
the great snake Ananta,
Talpe,
Talpe,
on the bed of.
on the bed of
Adhishayanaha,
Adhishayanaha,
lying on.
lying on,
Ekaha,
Ekaha,
alone.
alone,
Kritakshanaha,
Kritakshanaha,
being engaged.
being engaged,
Svaatmaratau,
Swadharato,
enjoying in his internal potency.
enjoying his internal potency,
Nirihaha,
Kriyaha,
without any part of external energy.
without any part of external energy.
Translation and purport. His Divine Grace. At that time, when the three worlds were submerged in water, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu was alone, lying on his bedstead, the great snake Ananta. And although he appeared to be in slumber, in his own internal potency, free from the action of the external energy, his eyes were not completely closed. What a beautiful description. Purport. The Lord is eternally enjoying transcendental bliss by his internal potency, whereas the external potency is suspended during the time of the dissolution of the cosmic manifestation. Om Jnana Timiram Tasya Jnanam Jana Shalakya Chakshurum Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Chakshur Unmilitam. The torchlight of knowledge has opened our eyes. Chakudam Diloye Janme Janme. He opens the darkened eyes. There's a lot of this. The eyes are so important. I recently heard there's an MMA star, Chrome Gracie. For those of us in Hawaii who are interested in jiu-jitsu, the Gracies mean a lot. They showed up in Hawaii before the rest of the mainland, and they quickly took their seat as the greatest of jiu-jitsu practitioners. In fact, Krishna says in the 10th chapter Gita, among jiu-jitsu practitioners, I'm the Gracies. So, this one...
We have to stick with it as it is.
Okay. Anyway, all great things represent Krishna, so as far as jiu-jitsu goes, they're the greatest practitioners. But the son of Hickson Gracie, who's understood to be the greatest of them, his name is Chrome Gracie, and he's quite amazing. And he gave this whole talk about how important the eyes are. He took it too far. He drew everything back to being some, anyway, we're not going to go into his weird philosophy. But it just reminded me that even in school, when we talk about evolution, the Darwinian theory of evolution, they reach a difficulty with the eye, because when you evolve from a little protoplasmic crud, little amoeba, you evolve according to necessity. So what he proved was that the birds' beaks on some Galapagos islands would get a little bit longer or shorter, the colors would change to adapt to an environment. So if a flower has too deep of a, whatever you call it, then the bird's beak can't reach, so gradually over time the bird's beak gets longer out of necessity. But you don't go from not having eyes to having eyes. It's not that the creature develops a necessity to see and therefore it creates eyes. Eyes don't manifest in that evolutionary way. It was explained to me much better by a scientist, but I'm not a scientist and so I don't fully understand how it works. But the point being is that the eyes are a very important illuminating part of the body, organ. Even more important than the eyes are the ears to hear transcendental knowledge. But as I was chanting Om Gyan Timiram Tasya Gyananjana Shalakya Chakshuru Militamina Tasmai Shri Guru Namaha, we're offering obeisances to Guru, who has opened our eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. So knowledge comes through the ears and it opens the eyes. So in this verse we have Krishna, Vishnu, lying down in the ocean, his own perspiration. Udaplutam Vishwamidam Tadasi Yanditraya Militadrin Nyamilayat. Nyamilayat, not completely closed. Amilita Drik. Amilita Drik means his eyes are closed. Nyamilayat, but not completely. Ahindra Talped Vishayana Eka Kritakshana Swatmaratava Niriha. At that time, when the three worlds were submerged in water, Garbhula Kashayi Vishnu was alone, lying on his bedstead, the great snake Ananta. And although he appeared to be in slumber, in his own internal potency, free from the action of the external energy, his eyes were not completely closed. Nyamilaya. The difference between the Supreme Lord and us is that he is kshana, krita kshana. He is being engaged, svat maratau, enjoying in his own internal potency, niriha, without any part of external energy. So he's enjoying in his own internal potency, whereas we're covered by these bodies, which allow us some experience, but when we think that experience is directly our experience, then we're fools. Yukto manye tattvavid. How does that begin? Yukto manye tattvavid. Ashnam sprashan, ashnam gachan spavan shvasan, palapan visajran grina. Yukto manye tattvavid. One who is tattvavid, who is really knowledgeable. Yukta, he's engaged in devotional service. 5, this is 5th chapter. Naiva kinchit karomiti. He understands, na eva kinchit karomiti. I'm not the doer. Karomi, that I perform these actions. Naiva kinchit karomiti yukta manyeta tattvavid. He's in divine consciousness. Indriyanindriyarteshu vartanta didhare. So this, there's a bunch of actions sandwiched in between these two lines. Indriyanindriyarteshu vartanta didhare means that all of these actions are carried out by the external senses. And in between Naiva kinchit karomi the yukto manyeta tattvavid and that end part is a whole slew of things. Pashyam sunvan spashan jignan ashnan gachan svapan shvasan pralapan vishajan gridnan unmishan nimishanapi. So I thought of it because of unmishan nimishanapi, that our eyes opening and closing. All of these activities of the senses, the soul knows that only the material senses are engaged with their objects and that he is aloof from them. So that's our condition. The material senses are engaged with their activities, with their objects, but the living entity remains aloof from them. Because he's not svat maratau. He's not kritakshana svat maratau niriha in today's verse. He's engaged in the external energy. He's not completely aloof from it. And therefore, when we take slumber, when we sleep to be fully rested, our eyes need to be completely closed. We need to be asleep. It's a sign of tamas, of ignorance, when the senses are not engaged. And someone who, a symptom of greater tamas is more sleep. Prabhupada says not more than 6 hours. Of course, some of us need 7 or 8. Kids need maybe a little more. But the point being to reduce the time spent wasted in sleep. Prabhupada himself would hardly sleep 4 hours. The 6 Goswamis are famous for sleeping 1.5, 2 hours, or no hours, just staying up all night. I know I've never been much involved in video games. I have my own vices, but I know friends who played video games who just stay up for 3 days straight. It's amazing. It's amazing how when you're engaged in something you like, you suddenly don't need sleep. You come up with so many excuses why not to do service at the temple. But when it's something you really enjoy, wow, all night long, no problem. I was in New York recently, and the same thing. People are having so much fun clubbing that I'm waking up from Mongols, and they're barely just getting out of the clubs. So all night long, engaged in these different tamasic activities. But the point being is that when we do take rest, our eyes need to be completely closed, and this is a healthy form of tamas. It's utilizing that tamasic energy and rejuvenating the body. But here, Krishna, Vishnu, Buddha Krishna Vishnu is lying down, and his eyes are closed, but not really, because he doesn't need to slumber. He doesn't actually need to take a break from his activities of creation. On the 7th day, God took rest. Well, kind of. His eyes are still a little bit open, because he was enjoying his internal potency. Krishna is always enjoying. There's no point in which he's suffering by contact with the muddy activities of this world. And then I like this word, Ahindra, the great snake Ananta. Talpe, on the bed of Ahindra. All of us have these little roles in this world. We play little roles. Indra has his role as the king of the demigods. Indra is a very powerful position. And sometimes when you're in a powerful position, they have that, what was that study? They put some people as prisoners, some people as prison guards. And very quickly, those who had some power began exercising it. Oh, I'm Indra, I'm powerful. And suddenly you abuse that power. So this is quite interesting when you think of the demigod Indra. Sometimes when we read Krishna book or different things, we get the idea that he's sort of a lusty fellow, that he's making all these mistakes. But actually he's a great devotee. Sometimes he makes a couple of mistakes being covered over by a temporary misunderstanding. But actually he is very powerful. But Ahi Indra, the most powerful, is Balaram. Bala means power. So Balarama. But not only power, but Rama, he gives pleasure. All those who come in contact with Balaram enjoy transcendentally. So Ahi Indra, the great snake Ananta. And what's the role of Ananta? Well, he's Krishna's bed. He's giving a soft place for Buddha Krishna Vishnu to lie down. So we just had Balaram's appearance recently, and tomorrow we're celebrating the Srimati Radharani's appearance, which I guess is Monday, but we'll celebrate tomorrow.
No, we're celebrating Monday.
Oh, we're celebrating Monday. Oh, I heard misinformation.
Monday morning.
Let's celebrate tomorrow too.
It's Mercury Sunday feast day tomorrow.
No, it's 19.
So every day is a festival. Nayanotsava, there's a description that when the deities open, it's a festival for the eyes. Nayana Utsava. So every day we come to Guru Pujas or Mangalarti, it's a festival for the eyes. A lot of eye themes today. Nayana, another word for eyes. So Ahi Indra, the great snake Ananta, we just had Balaram's appearance, and now Srimati Radharani's approaching. And it was interesting because I was looking up there's so many prefixes to the word Indra that make it, mean great. And so I was looking up some of the other ones, Rajendra, Surendra, and when I was looking it up, the first verse that popped up was from Antyalila. Let's see, it was quoted in the purport, but it's fantastic. And because Srimati Radharani's appearance is coming up, I will read it. This is from Lalita Madhava, quoted in Antyalila. Kvananda Kula Chandrama Kvashiki Chandra Kalankriti Kvamandra Murali Rava Kvanu Surendra Nila Dyuti. There's the Surendra. Surendra Nila. Sura Indra Nila, the greatest Indra Nila jewel. Kvarasara Satandavi Kvasaki Jiva Rakshaushadhir Nidhir Mama Suritama Kvatavahantahad Vigvidihi. This is Srimati Radharani's lamentation for her beloved Krishna, who was away from home. It says, Srimati Radharani said, "My dear friend, where is the glory of the family of Maharaj Nanda, who wears a half-moon ornament on his head? Where is Krishna, whose hue is like that of the Indra Nila jewel, Surendra Nila, and who plays so nicely on his flute? Where is your friend, the best of all men, so expert in dancing in the circle of the rasa dance? Where is he who is the real medicine to save me from dying of heart disease? I must condemn Providence, for he has caused me so many tribulations by separating me from Krishna." So this is an example of pralapa, mad talking, explained in Lalita Madhava. Surendra Nila. So this, and when you throw a prefix in front of Nila, or in front of Indra, it's that intensifier of control. Of course, here it's Indra Nila, which is the Indra Nila jewel, which is a pretty fantastic jewel. But the example given by Srimati Radharani and Balarama is both one of service, and therefore they are individually represented as the original spiritual masters, how to serve Krishna properly. Ahindra. I was going to go on to the next verse, but we'll just keep talking about this. So, yesterday we were doing a play with Maruti, and I've mentioned this story before, but it's so wonderful. The pastime of Pralambhasur, in which a cowherd boy entered who wasn't normally part of the crew. And after the boys split up into teams, Krishna on one side, Balaram on the other, Krishna's team, as usual, was defeated by Balaram's team. And Balaram was picked up by this new friend of theirs and carried off beyond the Maryada, beyond the line, the customary line of play. He carried him a little further than he should have. And it was at that time that Balaram noticed that he was moving upwards on the back of this transforming demon who was named Pralambhasur. And before Balaram began striking Pralambhasur, a few thoughts came to his head. I remember two of them. There's a third in the commentaries. I'll find it someday. And Maruti was Balaram, and I was Pralambhasur. My grandma, I believe, was Krishna, and my mom was another cowherd boy. So we were doing this play yesterday, and it was so much fun to play these roles and enact it. And then actually, Tirtha just gave me old pictures. She came with a binder of pictures, and in these pictures, it was amazing actually to see the temple room before. It was Prabhupada's Vyasasana was there, and the whole back of the temple was completely empty. Prabhupada's Vyasasana was a little further back, and the only other thing there was the dais for the puja plate. It was completely empty. It was quite stark but beautiful in its emptiness. And then over here we had my uncle with a huge paper mache Nrsimha head. And my dad was Hiranyakashipu. And it was so wonderful looking back. I must have been Prahlad. There was some little boy as Prahlad. It probably was me. And this is, let's see, 24 years ago or something. But it was cool too to show up with these couple of decade-old pictures of plays. And as I was doing this play yesterday with Maruti, I thought, we need to bring that back. Seriously, it's such a wonderful service, and it's so enlivening for everyone. These plays are so sweet. But as Maruti was on my shoulders, I was feeding him the lines, and Balaram's immediate reaction when the demon was becoming big, and this is the mood of service, wasn't, oh no, I'm in trouble. His immediate reaction was, oh no, if there's a demon here, there might be another one attacking Krishna. His immediate thought was, is Krishna safe? Which is counterintuitive when your own body is the most important thing to you. When Krishna's service is the most important thing, then you remain focused. I had this experience recently in Florida where I was climbing a rope and my finger, an old cut, split open, and my instant reaction was to let go. It's just an automatic reaction for our bodies, is that when you feel pain, you let go. But of course I wasn't paying attention, I was high off the ground, and so letting go meant I took a big fall. But that's the position, is that when you're focused on the small temporary things, then you end up taking a big fall. This is the result of being overly focused on one's own enjoyment or suffering, is that you constantly take this big fall, which means that you have to, again, climb, again, work your way back up to a consciousness of service. So Balaram exemplifies this innate desire to serve Krishna, where, oh, there's a big demon here, there might be another one attacking Krishna. And then once he dismissed that idea, or figured Krishna can take care of himself, or let me quickly dispose of this demon so that I can go help him, however you want to track that line of thought, he was again ready to kill the demon. And then again, another thought came to his head. Krishna accepted this coward boy playing with us. If I kill him, he might be upset with me. Hey, you killed my friend. This boy showed up to play games with us, and now I'm disposing of him. That's not right. And then once Balaram worked through all these ideas, he performed the original MMA tactic of throwing elbows. These are technically illegal elbows to the back of the head, but in Krishna's play, everything is fair game. And no Gracie can compare to the elbows that Balaram threw. He's the original jiu-jitsu expert, and he very quickly disposed of this great demon Prahlad. So this is the nature of the greatest servants of Krishna, Balaram, Srimati Radharani, Girigaj, Govardhan, Antaya Madhir, Abala, Haridasa Varyu. He is the greatest servant of Lord Hari, supplying caves and waterfalls to the cowherd boys and fresh grasses to the cows. So many wonderful things. And in response to that, Sparsha, the Pramodaha, by the touch of Krishna and Balaram's feet, he experiences great joy. So it's reciprocal. It's not that one puts oneself out by serving Krishna and then one's left with nothing. One is actually has everything to gain. One takes part in that Kritakshana, Swapna, Radhao, Niriha. One takes part in those eternal internal activities of the Supreme Lord. And then one no longer has that desire to close one's eyes and go to sleep. One's having too much fun. I see that with Maruti, sometimes with little children, it's difficult to put them to sleep because they have so much to live for. They're so excited about each new moment. They're so excited about life. And there's a tipping point, so I'm not sure where it happens in middle school, high school. I guess it's different for each person. But at some point, when it comes to your weekend, you're just so happy that you just get to sleep. I remember waking up earlier than the school day on the weekends because it was more fun. Somehow when school's there, you want to sleep in. The weekend, you're up at 6 a.m. ready to go run to the park. So I see that with my son Madhvi, is that he very much despises going to sleep. And sometimes it's very difficult to get him to nap or to go to sleep at night because he's so busy having fun. And we see in the example, especially, of course, Ashram Raj and Kushamata, Narayani Nagaosh. I just looked around and realized we have such an abundance of wonderful association senior devotees. I'm sure all of you have wonderful examples of in the 70s, 60s, 70s of devotees foregoing sleep during festivals, or 18-book marathon in 2 months. I'm sure there wasn't much sleeping going on then. Or I heard Jayananda Prabhu was completely passed out in class, and one devotee went to wake him up. Prabhupada stopped him. He's been working on the Radhesa festival non-stop for 2 weeks. Let him have his half hour of sleep during class. So, foregoing sleep for the service of the Lord is one austerity. But never mind that austerity. How about just foregoing the activities of the senses for spiritual advancement? That means that if you're considering contemplating a second bowl of ice cream at 10 p.m., maybe better leave it at 1, and then you'll have less trouble waking up in the morning. That's my battle. I like ice cream, and sometimes it's the inappropriate time. And I could be at Guru Puja, but instead I'm sleeping. So, for each of us, we have our opportunities to voluntarily withdraw the senses, like the tortoise, one can act or withdraw the senses. And when the senses are withdrawn in the service of Krishna, then all perfection is there. And one can eventually take part in the eternal, internal activities of the Lord. What a description. The Sanskrit is so much more wonderful than the English. We get this direct juxtaposition. Nidraya militadrin yamilayat. Directly following that his eyes are closed, it says, yeah, but not quite. It's nice how they're put together like that. Any comments, questions, corrections?
Krishna doesn't need his eyes to see, though.
There's a nice point. My Russian friend told me a really nice story about Jamuna Mataji, that she was always being praised by Prabhupada, and this devotee had a competitive mood. It wasn't necessarily like bad. He wasn't inimical. He liked the other devotees, but he had a competitive mood. And because Jamuna Mataji was always getting praise, he felt like he had caught her out on something wrong. She had put the flute backwards in dressing the deities. And so he saw that Krishna's mouth was on the wrong side and his fingers were over the flute hole. So he went up and he corrected her. And she said, oh, Angani yasyasa kalindriya vritti. Angani, anga, with any limb, Krishna can perform the actions of any other function. So he could play the flute with his finger. And this devotee wasn't satisfied. He went to Prabhupada, he was upset. And he said, Prabhupada, Jamuna Mata, she put the flute backward. Prabhupada said, Angani yasyasa kalindriya. So
that is wild stuff.
yeah, quite a wonderful story. So yeah, Krishna can perform the action of any sense, but yeah, he doesn't need to perform it with his eyes. And then again, I heard another story about the Kalpa Vriksha trees in Vrindavan that the mango kalpavriksha can give anything but all the cowherd boys want from their mangoes. So you can get whatever you want, a big palace, this or that, but satisfied with mangoes. The ironic statement of Vamanadev, he who won't be satisfied with 3 paces of land won't be satisfied with the 3 worlds. Right before he takes the 3 worlds. More. He takes Bali Maharaj's devotion too. But that's one of the most. The Krishna is the greatest of everything. So that's for me. That's just the greatest irony. It's so funny. Take something more. No. He who's not satisfied with 3 paces of land, he won't be satisfied with the 3 worlds. It's like a little hint at what's to come. Next point, Krishna can perform the activities of any of the senses with any of the others. Anything else? Everyone's ready for prasad, Shri?
Are Ananta Shesha's eyes open or closed?
I always see them open and like really fiery.
He's probably letting his brother just rest, and he's probably like,
He's aware, Lakshman didn't sleep for 14 years. And the and the banishment of Lord Ramchandra, Lakshman didn't sleep for 14 years. There's a good example of Nidra Ahara Vihara, Vijitao. Nidra Ahara, sleep, engaging in eating, Vihara, various recreational activities, Vijitao. The 6 Goswamis conquered all of these activities. They conquered sleep, they conquered the consumption, not just of food, but of worldly things, accumulation, and Vihara, even in recreation. So this recreation is we agree at the time of initiation not to gamble, and sometimes frivolous activity falls into that category of Vihara, various frivolous things we can do. The 6 Goswamis, Vijitao, they conquered this desire for frivolous activities. So Lakshman didn't sleep. Ananta Shesh. I don't think, maybe he's not always fiery, but definitely when you see him over Nrsingadev's heads, he's always like breathing fire. I know there was is it Bhakt Prahlad or Hari Darshan, one of those videos, they have a fantastic Ananta Shesh with these little like paper mache fires that like they have a fan behind it or something. And they're all
Also in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna addresses Arjuna, go to the conqueror of sleep.
Yeah, Gurudakesha, yeah. Yeah, he's totally conquered sleep. Gurudaka, Isha, he's the Isha of all Gurudaka. Ignorant activity. Yeah, so many wonderful examples. And it's really fun to bounce from verse to verse. Like when I saw Ahindra and I searched for Surendra, it was so much fun to see that verse. I generally don't quote from Lalita Madhava, but it popped up, and Srimati Radharani's appearance being around the corner, I figured it was appropriate. But yeah, so many nice verses and examples of conquering sleep. Arjuna, the 6 Goswamis. I mean, heck, even Hiranyakashipu. He was so determined, and he didn't sleep. You think he was like napping on his tippy toes? I don't think so.
He didn't fall over.
Yeah.
Srila Prabhupada say great personalities but sleep a lot.
Yeah, there was, now I'm forgetting the example, but it was, there's some famous book about success, and the first thing is wake up before the stock market opens. You know, if you're engaged in any sort of success, you're not sleeping as much. It's true. Any sort of success, material, spiritual, sleep is the first thing to conquer. Yeah. And conquering the tongue is next. The activities of speaking, of eating, but we conquer the activities of eating and speaking by only talking about Krishna and only eating Krishna prasad. So I think there's Krishna prasad waiting. So I will allow everyone to Hare Krishna. Jai Srimad Bhagavatam.